Hey, greetings everybody. It is GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. So we've really just about wrapped up and put a bow on everything that happened in the Second War and the expansion beyond the Dark Portal. But we're going to have a first here this time. We're going to read our very first short story. Now, there are a lot of short stories. Some of them are found in books, and there's some fables. There's a new-ish, came out within the past, I don't know, year or so, like bedtime storybook. So there's other little ways that we can look at some lore and some short stories, either in hard copy form or perhaps digitally later on. But for the most part, you can find a whole bevy of short stories on the World of Warcraft official website, which is where we're at right now. So this is all free content if you don't want to hear me read it. But if you do want to hear me read it, I'm going to do that right now. And while they might be short stories, I think in the long run, they might be a little longer than a chapter of a book. So our short story episodes are probably going to wind up being a pinch longer than a normal chapter in a novel episode. All right, but stay a while and listen to this one. It's called Gallywix, Trade Secrets of a Trade Prince. Now, in both official timelines or the best timelines, I use a couple, I cross-reference through a couple timelines. They don't always agree to specifics, and variously they leave out little bits, and it's whatever the priority of the creator spent. And in none of that in any way is a criticism. I literally couldn't do what we are doing now without the people that have put the hard work to make the timelines. And there's some awesome ones on Reddit and awesome ones on Wikipedia. But they both agree that this is something that occurs during the Second War. I've glanced through it. I cannot find why it's referenced that, but we'll try to see if we can discover that along the way. All right, here we go. Introduction by the author. Hey pal, Trade Prince Gallywix here. You're holding this book in your hands because you want to be like me. Who wouldn't? There ain't a goblin alive more powerful and dangerous than me. I can give you everything you need to succeed. But first, a friendly, legally binding warning just for you. If you're reading this and haven't bought the book yet, that's stealing. You think that browsing is a victimless crime? You think it's your right as a customer? You'd be dead wrong, deadbeat. It's freeloaders like you who drove down my profit margin last year and kept me from adding an edible furniture wing into my mansion. Now, instead of the chocolate couches with funnel cake pillows I deserve, I have furniture made of silk. Have you ever tried to eat silk? You even know where that stuff comes from? A worm's cake hole, that's where. You need to fix this. Buy my book, or my exploding assassins will hunt you down like the thieving bilge rat you are. What, you doubt me? Have we met? You don't become trade prince by making empty threats. The spot ain't hereditary like that cushy king job those pink-skinned humans get. If I told you 32 spies were watching you lick your lips nervously right now, you better believe it, pal. Don't bother looking around. You won't see them. Stop wasting my time and risking your life. 20,000 gold is a cheap price to pay for my life story. And if you read past this sentence without buying the book, I'll devote every inch of my empire to destroying you. You understand me? Good. Now pay the damn salesman. Done? You sure? Great. Well, thanks for buying my book, sucker. You want to be a trade prince? I want an army of fell reavers with my face painted over their fists. But negotiations with the Burning Legion fell through, so I guess neither one of us is going to get what we want. Why can't you be a trade prince? Because all the slots are filled by goblins better than you. That's why. You ain't ready yet. Don't worry. You came to the right goblin for help. You may have heard a few rumors about me. Gallywix became trade prince by blowing up, selling out, or just selling everyone he knew. When Mount Kajaro erupted, Gallywix had the only boat, and he charged refugees the low price of their life savings. He packed the stars of the goblin aristocracy like sausages in a hold and tried to sell them into slavery. That monster Gallywix betrayed his entire race for a bazillion macaroons. Kinda terrible, huh? So right there, he's referencing events that don't happen until Cataclysm. So it must be in his life story that occurs during the Second War. Beyond the Dark Portal, actually. Guess what? It's all true. Why would I lie about that? I never cover up the things I'm proud of. If the world was going to split in half tomorrow, I'd buy the Dark Portal, slap a toll booth on it, and charge refugees the last of their pocket change, the rings off their fingers, a bite of their sandwiches, and a contractual obligation to build me a rocket palace in the skies in the grand. It's the goblin way. Supply and demand. Deal with it. But hey, you paid for your ticket, and this is what you get. The 3 secrets of the greatest trade prince this mudball has ever seen. They won't take me long to tell. In fact, if you flip through the book, you'll find that the last 300 pages are copies of old newspapers and recipes for fish jerky. Sorry, pal. No refunds. Now, is Gallywix the big fat trade prince? I think he might be. So I think this is like the official leader of the goblins writing this. I'm the big fat guy that rides around in like a mecha chair. I'm too deep though. I'm not changing the voice. Not if I have to read this whole thing. I need to do like this goblin voice that's also in a medium tone so I don't get worn out. Secret 1. Don't let anyone take your cookie. On the day I turned 10, I took over the family tinkering business and the local crime syndicate. It was easier than selling a mirror to a blood elf. Pay close attention. So maybe it's also based on the assumed Gallywix's age. My birthday began the way every morning did. My pop almost killed me. Not that he ever meant to. In fact, that was kind of the problem with him. Nothing he did ever went the way he wanted, which is no joke when you work with explosives. The only shop he could swing was so deep in the bad part of the Drudgetown slums that even Trade Prince Maldy's tax collectors weren't safe. The last one to visit got scammed out of his boots, jumped, insulted, tied to a gunpowder barrel, and rolled back to the old goblin with a polite refusal letter between his teeth. My pop saw the lack of taxes as a fringe benefit. I saw the muddy street and the irradiated garbage. Even the rats was moving out. My pop thought he was going to make it big someday with a world-shaking invention. I knew it was only a matter of time before he blew us up, and I had decided the night before to run away and become a pirate like my ma. I'd spent all night packing and planning. The 5 macaroons stuffed in my torn boots felt like a fortune. My pop got up around dawn and started messing around in the shop, talking to himself. His research and development process had 3 stages: optimism, concern, and panic. And the third one could leave you short a few fingers and most of your skin. He was at 2.9 when I tied my pack closed and rammed it under my moldy mattress. "Come on," he muttered from the other side of 2 paper-thin walls. "Just a bit tighter. Tighter. Whoops. Uh-oh. No. Stop, kid. Wake up and grab some cover." I wearily raised my lead-lined pillow just as a teddy bear with orange fur and a mechanical face rocketed through the wall. It saw me, gave a shrill screech, and exploded, flinging shrapnel tornadoes in every direction. Footsteps thundered up the dingy hall, and Pop burst through my doorway. He didn't knock first, but not because he was in a rush. Napalm had melted the door last month. "You okay, kiddo? Did you see it? A perfect test. Horizontal burn, target locked on, a gyroscopic spin, and detonation. The Union said using microbombs for navigation and rocket fuel for thrust would melt the entire neighborhood, but we showed that." I tossed my shredded, clanking pillow to the floor. "That was the only prototype, right?" "Well, yeah, but..." "And the blueprints were..." I asked, trailing off to let him answer. I had a lot of experience talking to him. "Stolen by a mechanical chicken." That was new, but he wasn't going to sidetrack me. "So you can't build it again, right?" He opened his mouth for a snappy comeback, then his eyes widened in horror. I nodded. The morning routine was complete. Time to get some breakfast and hit the road. "Doesn't matter, kiddo. I understand the principle now. Explosives hidden in lovable objects are a completely unexplored market. We're gonna be rich." "Pop, the only way we're gonna stop being poor is if you blow us up," I snapped. "That's not fair, Jester. It's only a matter of time. Oh, so Gallywix's name is Jaster. You know what? You're right. You will kill us both someday, Pop. I believe in you. Hey, there's plenty of goblin kids out there who wish their parents were tinkers. When I was your age, I used to dream, really, Pop? This story again? My parents would quit shoveling sewers and blow a few things up. You worry me when you talk about being afraid of explosions. It's not goblin. No, you know it's not goblin. Having a kid and telling him to go play. You know what the problem is? There's no one to play with. Jelky has to spend all day braiding fuses. Drugs wakes up at dawn to mix cement. You know how embarrassing it is that my own pop won't force me to work for him? Pop threw his hands up in the air and headed back down the short hallway to the shop. Tell you what, he called. Why don't you leave running the business to me and leave the sugar pack cookie over here to the first kid with the birthday who comes by? Oh, and I'll leave. I'm pretty sure you gotta sell things once in a while to have a business, I shouted after him, but my heart wasn't in it. Sugar pack? Chow for the road. You think you can do better, he said from the shop. You can try any time you want. Hello, gents. My pop had customers, sounded like. I took it as a good omen for my trip. If something as unlikely as business could occur in my pop's shop, I'd have no problem finding a ship out of Kazan. Hell, I could probably find a tame shark who'd take me to a magical island made of cupcakes and platinum. I stumped down the hall for the cookie. The Sugar Pack Bakery ain't around anymore. A few years before the orcs arrived in Azeroth, the corner shop was slightly bombed during Trade War II, thoroughly bombed in Trade War IV, and melted during the Peace War. The whole neighborhood smelled like burnt sugar and body parts for a month. But here's the thing. If you never had cookies from the Sugar Pack Bakery, you never had real cookies. Period. So right there now we're referencing even before the First War. They were big enough to hold in 2 hands and a little brown around the outer edge. Chocolate chunks the size of an ogre's fist. Touch of cinnamon and crystal sugar. And I only got 1 a year. I froze near the end of the hallway and hid in the half shadows. I should have known better. No customers. Skezzo and his goons were trying to shake down my pop again. In Drudgetown, even the criminals was nearly broke, and the Copper Street gang was no exception. I can still see that idiot Skezzo with his fake gold earrings and smelly patchwork suit. The only worthwhile thing he ever did was tangle with me. He shoved my pop against his 3.5-leg workbench. Near the other end, my cookie wobbled on our only plate. I hissed, but I wasn't too proud to eat the thing off the floor if I had to. You would have too, believe me. What are we gonna do with you, Luzik? Skezzo said. You never pay us on time. You never pay us at all. I would hate to have Lumpo come back in tomorrow and blow up. Skezzo trailed off as he failed to find anything of value in sight except a roll of dynamite, which, as you might have heard, is supposed to explode. Look, I'm sorry, my pop said. Money's been tight. I barely have enough money for supplies. And sweets, looks like, Skezzo said, reaching past him to snatch up my cookie. Pay me everything you owe by tonight, he said, stuffing it in his mouth. Priceless crumbs rained down on his greasy lapel. I'll burn your shop down and charge you for the torches. He spotted me in the doorway, winked, and swaggered out, spitting out the rest of the cookie along the way. And that was it. If not for that cookie, I would have run away to be a lowly pirate king in the South Seas, and the world would be a very different place. I staggered into the shop. Pop was talking to me. I couldn't hear him over the blood thumping around in my ears. I could have left Kazan if I wanted, but that wasn't what was wrong here. My pop had let cheap thugs take things from him. I'd let them take the cookie from me. That was the problem. That was why we were poor. Sure, Skezzo had a gang. Sure, he had weapons and numbers, but I had something ballooning up inside my head, like a fleet of zeppelins attacking a knoll hut. A code. All sharp edges and oiled parts. This business was my pop's. This business was mine. That cookie was mine. I didn't blame Skezo for trying, but no one was gonna take what was mine, no matter the cost. 10 minutes later, I was across town with one of Skezo's loan sharks, surrounded by cigar smoke and smirking bruises. "Let me get this straight," the shark said, chuckling. "You owe this boss money, and you want to borrow from him to pay him." "Yep," I said. "With interest," the shark said, his lips trembling from the effort of not braying laughter in my face. "Whatever you think is fair," I said, straight-faced. "Okay, run," he said, counting out the cash. "But I think I know why your dad is in trouble. Business sense must not run in your family at all." The only thing that gets around goblin society faster than a new gunpowder girl's calendar is the possibility of public humiliation. Skezo came back that night with his entire gang, loan sharks included. All along Copper Street, doors opened as our loyal neighbors leaned out to watch the tinker and his idiot son lose the last of their money and get driven out of town. Only Pop was gone. He'd gone to get another cookie, which was just like him. Well-meaning but totally missing the point. This wasn't about cookies anymore. Skezo and his mob stopped in front of me like an ugly arrowhead. "You got my money, kid?" he said. His goons leaned over his shoulders to see if I was going to be dumb enough to go through with this. "With interest," I said. Skezo snatched the bag from my hand, patted me on the head, and ambled back down the street with his gang. That's right. He didn't even count the money. How this guy ran anything more complicated than a sausage stand is still beyond me. "Nice doing business with you, kid," he called back over his shoulder. "Lumpo carried the bag. It's too damn heavy." "That'd be the dynamite," I said helpfully. Cameras wouldn't be invented until some years later, but I'd still kill for a snapshot of Skezo and his goons gaping at me the second before the bomb stuffed under the cash went off. When the smoke cleared, the entire gang was gone. In eerie unison, my gawking neighbors stared at the smoking crater, then back at me. I smiled and pointed at the sky. Hundreds of eyes obeyed, looking up. Skezo, his gang, and his flamin' money were raining from the sky. I strolled across the street to Bezok the brickmaker. The whooping of my neighbors putting a little skip in my step. Sure, the trick had cost the rest of Pop's money to cover the interest in the dynamite, but those 400 macaroons were going to be chump change by the end of the week. "Wow, wow," said Bezok as goblins spilled from every crooked doorway and greasy alley for the world's most disgusting treasure hunt, looking for undamaged macaroons. "Way to show them, kid. We're free." "It won't last," I said, casually dodging a burning sock. "There's a void. Other gangs will move in once they hear Skezo is gone. We gotta incorporate for protection. Establish and guard trade routes." "Yeah," Bezok said, going all starry-eyed. "Great idea. Maybe someday we can." "No," I said. "Come over tomorrow morning, and I'll have a contract ready. You can stay in charge of production, all right? I'll take the boring business stuff off your hands." "Huh?" Bezok said, blinking. He'd been eyeing a feathery cloud of lit macaroons drifting toward the roof of his shack. "What? Wait, you think you can run my business? Listen here, kid." "Boom," I said. "Boom?" Bezok said, flinching. "Boom. Why are you saying boom?" I just like saying boom," I said with that creepy serenity that only kids can pull off. "Look, come over tomorrow morning. You won't even notice I'm in charge until you realize how much money you're making." Bezok wasn't a coward. He was struggling to pay the bills, and people like that are always looking for a quick and unexpected way to make macaroons. "You know what, kid? Why not? I can get out of it later if I want, right?" "Sure, I'll adjust the contract for that," I said. He'd just have to leave his business behind, pay me a yearly management fee, and climb into a bear suit 3 times a week to advertise for Pop's upcoming line of exploding lovables. I left Bezok as he was dragging out a ladder to reach the macaroon bonfire on his roof and swaggered home. When my pop came back, I was busy writing my first contract in letters so small a gnat with glasses couldn't read them. Contracts are easy to write if you focus on cheating the poor fools who are going to sign them, and if you remember that most everyone believes the small print is there to be scanned before you sign rather than shown to 10 lawyers, tested in a court, and then dismantled word by word and detonated in a controlled environment. My pop shuffled to his feet, clearing his throat. "I can do better," I said before he spoke. I didn't have to look at his face to know that he'd heard about the bomb. "What?" he stammered, a paper bag crinkling in his hand. "You asked me if I thought I could run your business better. I can. By tomorrow morning, we're going to have access to Bezok's cash and more from there, but I need you to sign over everything to me." He was quiet for a long time. I used the silence to get a few more lines down. "You definitely take after your ma," he said finally. "Okay, you got a week. If we don't see enough of a profit to buy more dynamite, you're going to have to work it off, all right?" Yeah, he thought he was setting me up to fail and learn a valuable lesson, but he left me alone with my new cookie and my work. The cookie went stale by the third draft, and I decided to keep it as a reminder. Still have it, in fact. By the time Pop's deadline rolled around, half of the businesses on the block had joined my Copper Street conglomerate. I moved out by then, but I sent him 3 crates of dynamite, a blast suit, and a bonus. Yeah, you're right. That was a little soft. But remember, I was 10, genius. I made my first 1,000,000 macaroons right around the time you caught the sklaz from swimming through the toxic oil slick around Gazrak Oatburner's Healthy Foods factory. Besides, he was my pop. And I take care of things that are mine. Secret 2. You're either ruthless or toothless. There's no middle ground. Years passed. I'm not going to give you a detailed receipt of all the businesses I took over, started, sold, or destroyed. I won. That's all, and I won everything I wanted. Not because of luck. No, luck doesn't exist. Luck is for losers. If you move big, fast, and hard enough to carve yourself a place in the world, everyone else will bend over backwards to give you everything you want just for the thrill of being part of your success. Well, most everyone. Occasionally you're going to run into other big movers, and they'll cut you down like a sacred tree at a venture company logging party if you don't do it to them first. Back during the Second War, I was Kazan's rising star, president of the massive Copper Street conglomerate, advisor to the Tinkers Union, big goblin in the trade coalition, and the second richest guy in the Bilgewater cartel. Trade Prince Maldi decided he wanted to meet his possible competition, so he sent me an invitation to his daughter's birthday party at his manor. The old goblin was as popular as a bar of soap on a pirate ship. Trade Prince Steamweedle was rumored to be making a mint from his alleged exclusivity contract with the Horde. Maldi thought if things went south for the Horde, the Alliance would turn on us next. He clamped down hard on trading, making sure that Bilgewater had enough supplies and money to weather a financial siege, and bent the other cartels over a spiky barrel. Solid move, but here's the problem. Your average goblin doesn't like cautious. Cautious is boring. The moguls and financiers of Bilgewater had decided they wanted a younger, more aggressive trade prince in Maldi's place. Guess who? 6 months of backroom planning had gone into that night, long before Maldi had even sent the invite. Every angle was covered, every palm greased. Even the other trade princes had given the secret approval, if only because they liked having inexperienced competition. Success was inevitable. I was going to be a trade prince by sunrise. I strolled up the path to Maldi's manor. Dissy Steeltack, my personal assistant, raced up to me. Years later, I'd have to fire her for paying assassins to kill me in my swimming pool. She was magnificent. "I broke into Maldi's desk, sir," she panted. "He hid the key under a falcon statue. I found his research on what the other trade princes are up to." "Great," I said. Maldi was getting soft if he was leaving that sort of thing lying around. "What are they doing? We got to copy them if we're going to stay competitive." This he shuffled through the papers. "Building mercenary armies." "Useful. Send a gift basket full of gold to the South Sea freebooters." "Metal or chocolate, sir?" "Chocolate. They're going to bite it anyway. Might as well give them a treat. What else?" "Perfume." "Perfume? Trade Prince Donalds is really into it, sir." "Okay, let me save you some time. Everything that's on that list, get someone who works for me to do it. Get out of here. I have a party to attend." This he nodded once and took off. I got 3 steps closer to the manor before Riddlevox, director of the Tinkers Union, jumped out of a bush. "You remember the plan?" he hissed. "I wrote the plan," I said, trying not to grit my teeth. I based it on Trade Prince Maldi's big weakness. He actually loved his daughter. If you're a trade prince, you can't afford close family members or friends. Chum and chump sound the same for a reason. My pop was the exception, of course. He had the ambition of soggy wood. Besides, anyone who tried to kidnap him to threaten me found out if a goblin could be crammed to a cannon and shot safely from Kazan to Booty Bay. "Don't screw this up, Gallywix," said Riddlevox, climbing back into the bush. "And don't get any ideas. You may get to be called a trade prince, but you'll work for us, understand?" "You got it, boss. In your dreams, idiot." The guard at the edge of the dance floor waved me past with a slight nod. I'd spent 2 months replacing Trade Prince Melody's bodyguards with my own mercenaries. I sauntered on through. Ever had everyone at a party turn and cheer as you came in? No? I recommend it. 100 goblins tried to catch my eye or give me a drink. I ignored them and skimmed a handful of lobstruck puffs off a passing tray. I had work to do here. I'd never met the Trade Prince's daughter, Nessa. My researcher had said she'd bought a blue dress and a diamond dragonfly hairclip for the party. He'd added that she looked stunning. I fired him naturally, but when I saw Nessa from across the party, I realized, for the first time in my life, I owed someone an apology. She was so beautiful that you'd believe she was getting paid overtime for it. Skin the color of the deep green sea, eyes as dark as midnight in an emerald mine. The shine of her coiled hair made the diamond clip look cheap. An invisible hand pulled me by the lungs through the crowd to her. I couldn't be stopped. I knew that I had to get control back here. Plan A depended on my getting her away from the party and into the hands of the kidnap squad so that Maldi would surrender without a fight. "Want to dance?" I said, tossing Plan A out the window. "Why not?" she replied. I realized she'd watched me come over the whole way. "Outstanding. Nandrix here has borne the life out of me." I spun her away from the devastated little banker towards the middle of the dance floor. We chatted as we danced, but I couldn't tell you about what. I felt drunk. My ambitions were in big trouble. If I moved against her father, I'd lose my chance at her, and let me tell you, her beauty was even more staggering up close. I had to play it cool. "Marry me," I blurted. She snorted. "I barely know you, Mr. Gallywix," she said. "I can fix that," I said. "I'm president of the massive Copper Street conglomerate, advisor to the Tinkers Union, big goblin in the trade coalition, and the second richest guy in the Bilgewater cartel," she finished with a half smile. She'd read my press release. "But I can't marry you," she continued. "Sure, you've gotten lucky a few times, but I like ruthless goblins, risk takers." I was speechless for a few seconds. Not very good at speechless, though, so I recovered. I told her about my early days, waved newspaper clippings in her face about mysterious hospital fires and orphan extortion, gave directions to where the literal bodies were buried, and from there dove into the really nasty stuff. She listened, cocking her head to one side. Occasionally she smiled. When I'd finished, she shrugged and said, "That's a good start, I guess." What a dame, right? Up until then, I actually felt guilty. No, really, about Plan B. But I was suddenly sure that it was the right way to win her over. She wanted a really ruthless goblin. I practically had her blessing. I didn't notice the commotion behind me until a cane wrapped my shoulder. I glared back, said, "Whoops." "Ah, so you're the one who's been monopolizing my daughter, young Gallywix," Trade Prince Maldy said, leaning back on his thick cane. His hand, heavy with thick gold rings, flexed on the suspiciously hilt-like handle. Silence fell over the party. These goblins had seen enough high-class backstabbery to know something was coming. Pleasure to finally meet you. Get your hands off the merchandise." "Sorry, sir," I said, moving away from Nessa. "Thank you. I heard that my security forces burned down your counterfeiting factory last month. Hope you didn't take it personally. Just business." "Don't say just, sir," I said, grinning. "Sounds like an apology." His wrinkled face split into a wide, leathery smile. "I knew I liked you," he said. "Are you enjoying my daughter's party?" "Her party," I said, signaling the guards. "Not anymore. It's mine now." "What?" Maldy barked, brows crinkling. "As of sunset today, I own a majority of your holdings in the trade coalition through 100 false fronts and small businesses. You could check, but I bought off your administration, so you don't want to trust them. I own your security forces. I stole the land under your house, and you rented those rings from one of my shops. You're done, Maldy. You're done, and everyone knows it." Somewhere in the distance a parrot squawked. Maldi reddened, then purpled, looking around for an ally and seeing my bruises closing around us in a wall instead. I held them back with both hands. To impress Nessa, the next part needed a personal touch. "My shipment," he snarled. "Half of my fleet is setting sail right now with the weapon shipments for the Alliance. I'll make a fortune and buy everything back." "I'm glad you mentioned that," I said, and pulled a remote from my pocket. I brought a show for your guests." "Push the button." "No." "What? You don't like surprises? You afraid? I thought trade princes were supposed to have guts." "Push the button, Maldi." Baring his teeth like an old lion, Maldi stabbed his finger at the big red button. Down in the harbor, each ship in his trade fleet exploded into roaring balls of fire in perfect alphabetical order. Winking at Maldi's shock, I snatched his cane out of his hand, drew the sword my researcher had told me was in there, and leveled it at Nessa without even looking her way. "So, you got an hour to get off Kazam before I ventilate your daughter and drop you headfirst into Mount Kajaro," I said, beaming at Maldi. Then I turned back to Nessa. "How's that for ruthless?" "Oh." Her face was so pale I could almost see through it. "Too much," I said, squinting. She stormed forward past the sword and slapped me across the face. Then she took a Pop by the shoulders and led him away through the breathless crowd. I dropped the blade and raised 2 hands and 4 fingers in the traditional goblin symbols for complete and utter victory. It's not like the Nixon. The guests, my guests, roared their approval, rushing forward to hammer my back and congratulate me while slipping business cards and bribes into my pockets. I didn't look any of them in the eye. Instead, I watched Nessa lead her father all the way down the hill outside the manor. Secret 3. If your retirement plan doesn't include a palace, you're doing it wrong. That was more than 20 years ago. You might be wondering if I have any regrets. Sure, I exiled the love of my life within 10 minutes of meeting her and arranged the later thoroughly accidental death of my never-to-be father-in-law. Everyone I've ever known has tried to betray me. I am alone. Ha! Right. Oh, no. My limitless wealth and power are all I have. How tragic. Send me some sympathy money. Just so you know, I send Nessa a new painting every year of me enjoying my riches. She sends me plain boxes wired with explosives. Who says long-distance relationships don't work? After years of writing the fine print, my hand cramps pretty easy, so I'm going to wrap this up. You know a lot of my secrets now, but don't fool yourself. You're never going to beat me. There's never been a trap I couldn't turn to my advantage. Even when that goblin I'm not going to name tried to get that brute of an orc thrall to kill me, I still ended up on top. Literally. Have you seen my new place? A palace on top of a mountain in Najara. Ocean views, grenade golf course, secret booze cellar, sultry dames in the pool? No, of course you haven't. Losers aren't welcome on my property. And that is what it looks like there in Najara, and as of Cataclysm. But hey, I'm not fooling myself. I know I won't live forever. Have you looked out the window lately? This planet's cracked like an eggshell. Najara could be underwater tomorrow. You bought my book, which makes us pals, right? Right. So in the unlikely event that you ever live longer than me, there's only one thing you need to do to take over the goblin race. Win. That's really it. I told you that you need to hold on to what's yours, be ruthless, and have a palace to be ruthless in. But if you want to be me, kiddo, you gotta see everything as yours for the taking. And you have to do anything and everything to grab it. So get out there and win. Cheat your friends and family, exploit people who trust you, and steal yourself a nice starter mansion. Make a fat profit. But how do I get rich, Trade Prince Gallywix? Good question, pal. Unfortunately, that's a whole different book. And as you might have noticed, I ain't in the habit of giving things away for free. I'll tell you what. Just start sending your money, jewelry, fried delicacies, and exotic animals to my pleasure palace. When I decide you've paid enough, I'll make out a copy of Getting Rich the Gallywix Way. And you got my personal guarantee that there's no fish jerky scam in that book. The meaning of scam, hereinafter referred to as the word, is wholly defined by Trade Prince Gallywix. Any attempt to discover the definition of the word will result in legal action. Any attempt to define the word will result in legal action. Any complaints about this volume or the recipes for Murloc fin soup, Murloc eye soup, Murloc scale soup, or Murloc don't even ask soup in the following 27 volumes will result in legal action. Any legal action will result in devastating retaliatory legal action. Don't mess with me, chump. I have a scorpion pit and you don't. I look forward to doing business with you, chum. Oh, that was funny. Nice little, basically it serves as a little history of Gallywix before he became the Trade Prince, which is cool. It's more of a cataclysm, I think, like precursor, but I guess the events technically occurred in this Beyond the Dark Portal period, although I don't really know how they managed to nail that down specifically. They said over 20 years ago, so I guess if you're timing this out as this is the Cataclysm expansion, and then you go back 20 years, but I don't know how it's nailed down right then. All right, so we got this episode in the pipe 5x5. All we have left of the official considered Dark War, Second War things are the 1,000 Years of War audio drama, the first few parts of it, which we'll do in the next few episodes. Thanks everyone so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed it. My terrible accents as always, and I'll look forward to seeing everybody next time on Lore of Warcraft.